My name is Vincent Dubois. I'm a professor at the University of Strasbourg in France at the Institute for Political Studies and a member of the SAGE research unit. My training is in political science, which in the French context is very close to sociology, with, in my case, a very strong influence of Bourdieu's framework, from which I have borrowed many things, among which I would say a unified notion of the social sciences that made me navigate from history to sociology and political science, of course, but also at some point to anthropology. And it is from these various disciplinary perspectives that I look at policy processes, because the core of my research is about public policy in a, let's say, non-mainstream approach to public policy. My first fields were cultural policy and language policy, so the intervention of the state in these domains. And for many years now, I have turned to the question of the relationship between the lower classes and public institutions. So I wrote a first book some years ago now on the encounters between welfare clients and agents in local welfare offices. And I've just finished writing a book on sanction, surveillance, and coercion policies over welfare recipients. And now I'm working on a new project on, let's say, the institutional processes envisioned from the point of view of the clients, of the public, members of the lower classes, not only welfare institutions, but institutions in various sectors, to show the way institutions in general, I would say, shape the lives and the ways of thinking of so these people from lower backgrounds. So I've conducted fieldwork based mainly on biographical interviews in France. So I have launched so far a very informal international network to work together on these questions in a comparative perspective.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I wanted to then move into thinking about one of the core concepts for our research project, so the concept of solidarity. And we hear solidarity in everyday language, in public policy, in media, but it's often used in a very sort of slippery way or non-explicit way. I'm wondering if you could say a little bit about how you conceptualize solidarity.
I have to say I don't really conceptualize solidarity, maybe because of the issue you raised, that is, especially in the French case, solidarity is a key word and a political motto, and it's a part of the ordinary official language. And I mean, it's far from the Durkheimian tradition, but it can be, to some extent, also a distant inheritance from the Durkheimian legacy to think in terms of solidarity. So I don't really conceptualize it also because actually the fieldwork I have conducted made me turn my interest towards situations in which it has more to do with the lack of solidarity than solidarity itself. So I would say or at least to situations in which we can observe only very selective forms of solidarity. So I would say I'm basically interested in mainly two things in this regard. The first is the process following which a global notion of solidarity, again in a Durkheimian sense of the term, tends to be reduced to more conditional support to the needy, which is a very general trend of most welfare policies in the Western world. So that is the first way to address the question. And the second is, in this perspective, to show how, I would say, compassion and coercion goes hand in hand, are the, so to speak, the two faces of the same coin. That is the individualized and moral way to deal with the poor. So again, very conditional, selective way to exert solidarity, which also leads to what could be seen as the contrary of solidarity, that is, again, coercion, constraints, penalty, and so on.
Thank you very much. I think that's a really important point about the conditionality or the selectivity of solidarities. So while certain solidarities might be being built, others are being fractured or excluded.
Exactly.
And so I wonder if you can say a little bit more about your own research, which of course, your work on social control, surveillance through welfare regimes, and particularly around questions of destitution or impoverishment. Could you say a little bit about how that research might shed some light on how methodologically or substantively we might think about studying solidarity, whether it's broken or built solidarities?
I would say that part of my work, especially the ethnographic part of my work, shows the concrete way this general trend towards a weakening or at least a redefinition of solidarity occurs in institutional settings and institutional practices. And maybe more generally, again, it is a general proposal, I would say, but also at a general level, I think that to me, the ethnographic observation of institutional processing of people, so to speak, is a very good way to show how very general and abstract notions are made concrete and applied to individual cases, be them legal norms that are contrary to the idealistic vision of law often defined on the spot, or social and moral norms such as deservingness, which are also defined during individual encounters on the basis of individual assessment. So that is, to me, one of the possible contributions of an ethnographic approach to these questions, that is not only showing how things are made concrete, but also putting the emphasis on situations that reveal, I would say, structural patterns of institutions and policy orientations in a way that I propose to call critical policy ethnography.
Thank you. And can you give an example of a way in which these, in your own critical policy ethnography, you have seen this sort of weakening or fracturing of solidarity?
It's one of the main points of my forthcoming book, that is to show how in welfare organizations, let's say the basic traditional institutional culture in terms of precisely helping people, assistance, solidarity, has been, if not replaced, has at least has been complemented and reoriented towards a more managerial way of thinking about, how things should be done, and in terms of more suspicion and responsabilization. That means, with the double sense of responsibilization, that is making people taking care of themselves, but also making or accusing them of being responsible for their fate. So looking at these, let's say, control practices are organized is a good way to me to precisely show these much more general trends that we can also witness in society as a whole, with all these themes of compassion fatigue and so on.
Great, thank you very much. As you know, our project has specifically pluralized the concept of solidarity. So our title is Solidarities, to take that in the plural. What do you see as the significance, substantively or methodologically, of that move to take solidarities as a plural concept, and particularly in the context of a piece of research that's looking at solidarities through the negotiation of migrant deservingness?
I think using the plural is precisely a very good way to underline the kind of big and large shifts I just mentioned, that is from a general form of solidarity organized at the level of society as a whole by the state or state-funded organizations, with the redistributive and the so-called universal vocation of the welfare system, to much more, let's say, fragmented forms of solidarity, be them local or within specific groups, or targeted as public within a specific policy program. So I think that it's not a detail to pluralize this word. It's really pointing at something that has changed or is changing, especially but not specifically towards migrants, because of course to me, I have to say that I have never worked on migrants specifically. I never had the occasion to do it, or I have never worked on migration policies. But of course, in all my field works, so the migrants were very often, let's say, or crystallized very often the more general trends or suspicions or problems that were observed more generally, when dealing with members of the lower classes. So I don't want to say that there is no specificity of the migrants, of course, but it's interesting to me to view the way the migrants are institutionally processed as the point, the further point of a general trend that affects more generally members of the lower classes.